working. All right. Okay, cool. So we're going to go over how to make scheduling kind of a seamless part of a Glide app, right? So last week we were talking about setting it up, and some of the ways that I was trying to do it were like a little bit complicated, and so I just kind of worked on it this last weekend, and I think it's a lot more simplified. So I'm going to show what that looks like now. All right, so let me push this window over here. And can you see the app?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so this is the e-commerce app that we've been using in the academy. This is what we teach in our class. It has categories here for purchasing items. And what we want to do is build something in here where you can like purchase an item using the Stripe integration and the buy button. But then after you purchase, it takes you into a scheduling process. And this is good for like an app that maybe is e-commerce, but like scheduling is an important piece of that. Like let's say you purchase an appointment, or you purchase items like at a barber shop or like in a salon, like you purchase maybe shampoo and shaving cream, like different items, but also the appointment, and you get that scheduling piece coming up. So in our e-commerce app, it kind of doesn't make sense, right? We're buying clothes. Well, what do you need to schedule with that? That's kind of doesn't make sense, but for the sake of example, we'll just say, okay, you're buying this dress and you're scheduling your fitting or alteration. I don't know, something like that. So we'll just pretend that and go with it. So here's an example of how it works. So you would go, let's say you wanted to purchase this red velvet dress. You pick your size, you pick your color, click on the link here, and then you see add to cart, right? So we added it to the cart. Then we go to our shopping cart. You can click here, our little floating button, and there's our selected item, right? Then we press checkout. And the nice thing about this is we can just put in a test credit card. That's the nice thing about Stripe, is you could just put in 424242 and then some date in the future and some random CVC number. We'll just put in some random zip code, and really actually none of these fields are required, so we could just press done at this point. Oh, actually, I think the name is required. Yeah, so now the button's highlighted, right? All right, so I'm just going to move forward with this. I'm going to place the order. And then I'm going to press done. Right, so we're back in the app, but there should be a change that comes up. Let's see, there it goes. Okay, so all of the tabs have now hidden, and that's good because when we take a look here, I just pressed hide screen so I could see what's going on. So now there's only one tab that's visible right now, and that's this Book Now tab. So you can see over here, I've got all these tabs. This one's called Book Now. So Book Now was not visible before, right? We just had all our standard tabs, but now it becomes visible. Everything else is hidden, and essentially that forces the user to make a selection here. They have to click one of these buttons. Now, you would want them to schedule, but there is a case where they may not see a date they want, right? They might be like, oh, like I don't like these dates. I'll do this, or maybe they get busy and they're like, I'll just do this later, right? So, and by the way, this is a web view component with a Calendly link in there, right? And these two buttons is a button bar. So that's all this is. And then when they press, let's say they want to book later, they press book later, boom, Book Now hides, and we're back in our app. Now we have the schedule tab where you click on that, and we have our various items that we purchased that we now need to schedule. So the last one I did was just now, right? So that would be this one, which the time is a little screwy, and I think that's still an issue with Glide that I need to put a ticket in for. Because right now you can see my clock here, it's 5:26 p.m. Pacific time on October 25th, and this is saying October 26th, 12:24 a.m. So it's off. How many hours is that? That's like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 7 hours off. So I've got to figure that one out. But aside from that, so if I click on this, it opens up for this purchase that I just made. It opens up a window where I can schedule, right? Okay, so let's say I'm ready to schedule. Boom. Let's do it on the 28th, 3 p.m. That's great. So let's say I go through all these screens. Then they have to press once booking is complete, or they can press back. So that is one little kind of, it's not totally bulletproof, but you would hope they would press the book once, or press once booking is complete. So let's say they press that and their booking is completed, right? So they now when they click on this, they can't get back in, right? So again, that it's not, oh, and these ones are for those other purchases, and it brings this up. So that is that, and basically the way to do it is simpler than what we went over last week. So I think this is an improvement. So basically you have a few important components. So first of all, you need your Book Now tab. Let's see, I'm going to preview this. Okay, so you need a tab that you make. You just press the plus, makes this new tab, and you need two components, web view and button bar. Okay, web view is only available as a component, I think, on paid apps. Am I right about that? Yeah. Is this paid? Maybe we're paying for this one. Okay. And that's where you drop in your Calendly link, right? You just go to the component. There's your link. Done booking and book later. So this is a button bar. You get two side-by-side buttons where you can customize the action, right? So what is the action it's actually doing? Well, you have two columns that you've set up that when you press done booking, it sets the value for one of those columns to 1. That column is called booking done, and you add it as a custom or a user specific column. I'll show you that in a second. And then book later, that's the same thing. It's a set column action, and it's putting a 1 value in book later column. Right, so these buttons are just setting a 1 value in a particular column. Okay, so let's just take a look at those columns. If you go to data view, we got to go to sales mirror. We went over this last week, but just to kind of refresh, your sales data lands in this app:sales tab, which is a Glide generated tab. Then you don't see this data within the app. You don't see it within the data view, right? It's not here. So the only way to bring that sales data back into the app where we can use it and relate to it is we actually have to create a mirror of it. So there's a sales mirror tab we created. And we use the query function to bring in the data from the app sales tab into a mirror of it, and that then can show in the Glide app, right? Because it's a brand new tab, and whenever you make a tab on your own, those show up in Glide, not the Glide generated ones. So our query function is pretty simple. It's just equals query parenthesis, and then you just, when you're building this up, you just kind of like click over here to where you want to get your data from, and you can like select this range, and it's from cell A1 all the way over to N. And so let's just go back to sales mirror here. See, so it's app sales A1 through L. So it's grabbing all that data, right? So now we've got the sales mirror tab. We got all our data in here. That's great. That creates the sales mirror tab in here. And now we've got all that sales data to relate to show in the app. You just want to make sure you do set your email, the purchaser's email, as row owner. And right now it says remove because I have it set, but it's this blue guy here that indicates it's active. And what that does is it makes it so only the person who made that purchase can see that data, and in the background only their data is downloading through the network traffic, so you're not, you know, inadvertently sending data all to everybody. Right? Okay, so that's key. But at this point, we've got all this data now ready and set to use. And then, so we come in here and we make these two user-specific columns. How to do that? You just press this plus. Users, let's see, you just add your label. So type in booking done. Column type would be number. And then just check off this column is user-specific, right? So you just do that for booking done and book later. And this is actually really important that's user specific because these are like virtual columns, right? They don't really exist in the Google Sheet. And you don't want them to exist in the Google Sheet because the sales mirror tab, it's just all this data is just this query that has run and it populates these empty cells, right? If you accidentally block any of these, watch, I'm going to press G right here. Boom. Our query can't run, and the error says array result was not expanded because it would overwrite data in E2. Yeah, E2. So we do not want data to be written by the app into this tab, right? So I just erased that. Here comes the data. And that's where these user-specific kind of like virtual columns are helpful because your data, you know, you're not writing data to this tab. It's getting written in the cloud somewhere. Let me just refresh this because when the query broke, it doesn't populate this. So it's back. Okay. All right, so we're all set with our columns, right? So just to demonstrate how this works, like this was the last transaction. You could see, like, remember I clicked the button book later first, so that put a 1 here, and then you might recall I pressed booking done, put a 1 here. So that's how this gets populated. But what does that matter? Well, we want the visibility of that book now tab to show when what? When, like,
when you're going to show the tab.
we want to show the tab, which is right when they've made the purchase, basically right after they made the purchase, right? And before they've pressed either of these buttons. So basically that book now tab we want to show when these two are what?
Oh, empty.
Empty, exactly. Right, so that's what this next column is about. We create this one, which is a if then else column, right? And I called it show book now tab. So true or false, do we show it or not? And then our visibility condition is basically set to look at this column and, right, it'll show the Book Now tab if this is true or not. Okay, so we want to look at two things, right? We want to look at the Book Done column. Is it equal to 1? If it's not, or let's see, if it is, put false, like false meaning like don't show the tab, right? For Book Later, is it equal to 1? Well, if it is, put false, don't show the tab. But if neither of these are true, then just go ahead and do this else case, which is true. And it will show the Book Now tab. If these two are not 1 true, it'll show the tab. Right? So we've got this column that is helping us set the true false for whether to show it or not. And it appears to be working, right? So we've got because both of these are a 1, it's a false. If one of them is a 1, it's a false, right? But if both of them are blank, it's a true. Now this is just an extra, like I've got this other column that says booking status, right? So this is that little like red message that just adds a little bit of a touch, right? Like if it says, this is an if then else, so it's looking at just my booking done column and it's saying, is the booking done? Like, is it equal to 1? If it is, then put the message booking complete. If not, then put the message in all caps, exclamation point, like book your appointment, like getting their attention, right? So that's a way to kind of also generate some messaging that helps, get people to book. And that's basically it. So we add these 4 columns, these 2 user specific and 2 if then else columns. And we come on back to our app. Let me just think. Well, there's one other step. We want to relate all these transactions to the user, right? We want to relate these transactions to the user, and we do that by relating which column?
The email, purchaser's email.
Yep, exactly. Right, so we got to set up some relations. I already did that, but it's that standard process. You create a relations column, and the related column is the email address. So you want to make sure you set those match columns. And do the relation on both the Sales Mirror tab and the Profile tab. Right? Is this the right thing? Here, yeah, this is the relation, right? So here for me, I've got 3 transactions and they're all coming through. So yeah, so I think now the complex thing I did before was using this part here, making a list of all the show visible tab column value. Like these were all false, right? For these 3 transactions, it was show the tab, and it was false, right? I'll go back so we can see that. So okay, so Erica, right? These 3 transactions, yeah, see, they're all false. And so back on over to profile. See, I was pulling those 3 false data points into a list separated by a comma. Now, I was using that before for the visibility condition, but I realized you don't, well, let me think. Do you really need that? Let me think. Okay, let me see what I did. So for the Book Now, this is all related to the Book Now, right? So options, visibility. Okay, I am still using that. trying to think if that's needed though. Yeah, it's fine for now. This is good. Um, there's a couple ways this could be done, but I think this works fine. So I'll go over that just a little more in detail because that's a little bit new. Um, so I'm in profile, right? And we made that relation so I can see my 3 transactions. And then this visible tab list, it's basically a new column where the column type is called joined list, right? So what are you joining? What different items you want to join into one long string? Well, you can choose it here. So I chose my relation, and then the show book now tab. So it's this relation is saying, okay, let's look at all of the items related to this email address in the sales tab, and which column do you want to link together with a little separator, and that's this one, show book now tab. And then you can say what separator you want. Okay, I'll just do a little comma and a space. Right? Done. So false, comma space, false, comma space. That's this. And now this is basically saying if, like, what I want to say over here then on my book now tab is make it visible when the user profile, when the currently signed in user's visible tab list includes a true. Anywhere in there. If there's any true, go ahead and show this book now tab. Right? And right now, it's showing because let's go to like just the regular view, right? It's not showing for Erica, right? Because they're all false right now.
Right.
Yeah. And then all of these, we have to do the opposite. For profile, the option has to be show when it doesn't include true. Right? So we just got to go through to each one, home, profile, categories, go through all of these and make sure you put another condition on the visibility for that tab that says, okay, we don't want this to show when visibility tab includes true. And that's basically it as far as getting the book now tab to pop up when there's a transaction. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So any questions on that? The next thing I was going to go over is just the schedule tab. Does that sound pretty doable? Because I don't know, for your app, does this come up as
Not for the app I'm currently doing. I'm always looking to see what I can use things for in general.
Right.
Although, to be honest, the visibility thing I can always fool around with for certain features. Because honestly, yeah, I don't know how I'm doing certain things. And I've changed so many things too.
Right. Oh, it says I'm offline.
I'm trying to simplify.
Yeah. Yeah. And really, this is like helpful for if you're going to purchase through the app and you need some other screen. It doesn't have to be scheduling, right? It could be any screen where you want them to
Right.
go through a process like, okay, they purchased, now that you want them to do one other thing and now another thing. I think for yours, there was kind of a need to do some like show this screen, show that, show one screen at a time.
Yeah, which I still haven't figured out how I want to do that.
Okay.
I was just looking at it today and I'm like, and I've changed so much. So again, trying to simplify. And I'm like, okay. When I went back and looked at it, I was like, this doesn't make any sense. I don't know how I would do that.
Yeah.
By listing it all on a different row, it doesn't make any sense because I need the columns because they're specific to different data types. So
Okay.
Yeah, that wouldn't work. So I'm like, okay, I got to figure this out. How do you go from this row to that row? And I
Yeah.
might have to just, I don't know for the visibility thing yet. I haven't figured that out.
Well, this is I think this generally shows like you can do you can do screens that show, kind of sequentially, or like when you set when, because I think with yours you had you had different like screens that needed to come up with a button that takes you to the next one, the next one, and the next one, right? And
Yeah,
that
I
would
think I
be a
had
different
worked it out
column
that way.
each time.
Right. And I had messed around using increments with it, and that's a no. I know I want to get rid of it.
Hmm.
Um, but then increments could potentially be used. I think that's what we ended up going with for the purpose of going to the next day.
Hmm.
But I still don't know what I would use as a good separator to show one part, then another part, then another part. And
Right.
to still have it accessible to them after they have seen it, they can go back and
That they
look.
can go back. Yeah.
It disappear.
It may be that the set column could be a way to go, because that's what we're using here is the set column action. And I don't think
And
we
what's the
tried
set
that with
column
yours.
again?
This is yeah, so that's like the book now tab. So these buttons here, they set the
Oh
value.
yeah, you said you were going to go over this part.
Yeah, yeah. So basically what happens here, okay, there's one important thing here. You gotta have the source for this tab be the sales mirror tab, right? So the source for this book now is sales mirror, and we're showing the detail style. And I don't, it's not very, what's it called? Obvious, but when you're in details, you're still looking at a list. But all it is that you're just looking at one of the items in the list, right? So when you say details for sales mirror, we're looking at one row right now on the sales mirror tab. It may not seem like it, but we are. So what we're doing is we're saying, okay, we're on a row. And the thing is, what row? What row are we on in sales mirror? Well, it always, if you don't have like a sort here that's, well, I set the sort to backwards, right?
I've never seen that being used.
Yeah, I mean, if we had this set as an inline list, you would see all the rows. And when you change this order, to backwards, it basically just puts the most recent transactions at the top.
Oh,
That's what
okay, got
that's
you.
what would happen if you saw the list. But since we're looking at as a details, we're only seeing one row, and so it's showing you the latest row, right? So when we do a set column, right? We're doing set column. It says which row? Well, this item, the item we're on. The item we're on is the latest transaction, right? And then it shows you all the columns, and you can actually, when you press this button, anything you put here, if I put in like ABC, or hey, when I press this button, it's going to send this value, ABC, into the purchase item column for the latest transaction. I'm not going to do that because that'll mess things up, but I am going to do that for the book done, right? I want book done column to get a 1 when I press done booking. And then for here, I want the book later column to get a 1 when I press book later. And it's a way to assign values. See, here's all our transactions, right? So like right now, as signed in as Erica, if I click that done button, it's not going to put a 1 here, or there, it's going to put it in Erica's last transaction she did. So it'll put it in this row here. And so that's why it's important for this tab, the Book Now tab, to have the source as sales mirror. If I had this as profile, okay, well now if I put a button here and use set column, it's going to set values on the profile tab, right? We don't want to do that. We want to set it on the sale mirror tab. So that's how set column works. So I think like for your case where you want to go from one, you want to show a screen that's like, okay, it's showing just the picture for a particular column, right? And then there's a button at the bottom that says next. Maybe two buttons, right? One's next and one's previous. The next button could set the value to like 1 or something. And then your visibility condition for that tab is like, okay, well, it'll only show when the value is 0. So once you press a button, okay, now it's 1. So now it's going to hide that, you know? And you just like do it for all of the various columns
And
that
then
you're
when
working
you
with.
did previous, it would what? Remove the one or?
You can do, yeah, you can actually do that. You can go, I can click in here and there's a clear value.
Oh.
Yeah, so you can do that. You could say, okay, the previous is actually clearing that value and all of that. So that would, I think that would definitely work for your case where you have, where you're trying to move across columns, right? You're trying to show one screen that's showing you just information for one column. Okay, now move to a different screen. It's just the information from that next column. Now the issue was how do we then move to the
Next row.
next row?
Right.
And
And still give access to that previous row. Like essentially,
mhm,
I want it unlocked, right?
right.
So once you've seen it once, you can always see it again versus you can't go forward. Like you can't see 3 days from now because you haven't gotten there yet. It hasn't unlocked for you yet.
Right. And I think that's where you set a column on the user profile and that would be like it's like a ticker that each user has, right? And it's like they're on week 2 now, you know, and maybe that,
Right, which we established something similar to that. So there is something on there. There's so many different
yeah,
things on there.
yeah, and that would control the filter for this detail. Like in this case, it would be this, right? Because like I said, this is actually showing you the top row, not the top row, but the last row for all of my transactions because I set that order. This one
Right.
here, where did it go? How do I get to that? I go Book Now, options, this one. She orders backwards. But let's say I put a filter that should, you know, make visible whatever the counter for that person's week is at, you know?
Is there an option for like everything up to a point?
Yeah, you could do greater than or less than.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
Okay.
less than or equal to, greater than or
So it
equal
would
to.
be like filter by week number, and then it's like equal to or less than week 3
Yeah,
or whatever,
yeah, yeah. So I
or day,
think,
whatever I'm doing here.
yes.
Week
And that's
number.
almost like you would think increment would work, but I don't think increment worked for us.
I think we ended up trying something else that did it instead. We did a
Yeah,
math equation or something, and
yeah,
that did it instead.
right. So I think we can kind of use some of the principles from this example in yours. Um,
Yeah, it had to be by day number and week number or
yeah,
something like that. We could
exactly.
play around with that.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so that's basically Okay, so let me just go over this last piece, which is the schedule tab. So we have the schedule tab because if they decide to book later, they need to be able to come back in here and say, oh yeah, I'm ready to book this one, you know, and come in here. So this is all this is a tab called schedule where the source is sales mirror. And here's all the, oh, we did card format. It's just showing the data from each of the transactions. It's not showing anyone else's appointments because we have the, what? Row owners, right? Got row
Right.
owners set, so it's not showing me anybody else's transactions. So I don't even need to put a filter on this. That's kind of a nice thing. And then I set the action to a custom action. I'll show you what that looks like. I basically need to do that because I needed to say, I need to put a condition on this. So only if the booking done value is empty does it show the detail screen. Why did I do this? It's because I have it so that if they're booked, like here it's booked, and they click on it, nothing happens. I only want it to like open up if they haven't booked it, if the booking done value is empty. That's just how I have it set up. I mean, you might want to set it up where they click on it and they see maybe details about their transaction and then the booking, you know. So maybe you don't want that, but I don't know. For me, that made sense. Yeah, and so once you go into detail, I set up a web view component with the Calendly link, and then this button, what do you think this does? Say it's press once booking is complete. So what do you think is behind
That's
door
just
number
one.
one?
Yeah, it's the one and
Yes, exactly. And I did it as a custom action. So if you come here, it's set column value, right? This looks familiar, right? Set column value, this item, booking done is 1. But I wanted one other thing, which was a go back, right? The go back makes it so that when I press this, it pops us out of this view. Otherwise, we'd just be hanging out here. So it's like I press this, and then it pops us back into here. And now it says booking complete, so I actually can't go back in. So yeah. And again, there's kind of a weak link here that, you know, let's say they did book everything and then they decided to press back instead of this. Technically, they'd still be able to come in here and book again.
Right.
But I just don't know quite yet how to prevent that. Like, yeah, I don't know. The only way to do, well, I won't speculate. That's just